Hello, welcome everybody to this podcast where our desire is that you be whole and that you be your best self, body, soul, and spirit, and that you be healed, become whole. Remember that word healed comes from the Greek word sozo, which means to be whole, and that's our desire. I want to talk today in this podcast about the authentic you. I've been on this journey recently about authenticity and what does it mean to be authentic. And in this podcast, I want to identify some things that maybe cause us to not be so authentic. Authenticity actually is going to drive you and lead you to be free, a free you. What does a free you look like? What does a whole you look like to be free? Well, authenticity, to be authentic, means to be real, to be genuine, to be true to yourself, and to be original. And oftentimes we are afraid to be original, to be real, to be genuine, to be true to ourselves, because maybe in the past there's been rejections, self rejection, or rejection from other people. Now, I want to start out by saying that we are already authentic. We're just sometimes not in touch with it. We're already authentic. It's not something that you're grasping to attain, it's not something that you're pushing to reach. You are already authentic, it's already in you. However, many of our defense mechanisms and many of our defenses, many of our coping mechanisms are actually keeping us from becoming authentic. The way we maybe respond to situations is actually keeping us from being authentic. Let me give you an example. Maybe you're a person that likes to be really, really nice. You can't say no. You're not being authentic. And there's something that's driving you. And there's something behind that. That's your coping mechanism. Maybe it feels like love to you because you lacked it in your childhood. So it feels like love now. And so you've got to be nice. You can't say no. And I want to take you on this journey to be authentic. I've been on it myself. I can't tell you I've attained it all. I think that I'm on this journey and for a very, very long time. I think that we need to uncover, to be authentic. I think we need to uncover and allow ourselves, right, to be true to ourselves and genuine with a lot of compassion and really self observe and go where areas are not authentic and why am I not authentic, right? So it's important for us to go down this path because authenticity, being authentic, and you may say, well, I'm as real as they come. I just say it like it is. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you're showing up with authenticity. Just because you are very blunt doesn't mean that you are authentic. So please don't misinterpret one from the other. I heard this saying that liberation and freedom is something that you achieve not all of a sudden. To be free is not something that you achieve from one day to the next. To be free and liberated happens every time you realize that you are not your personality. Every time you realize, wait, I'm not my personality. Who am I, right? And when you go on this journey of who are you, who's your authentic self, like remove the defense mechanism, remove the anger that is defending you, because that's a version of you that's defending you. Defense mechanisms are versions of us that have defended us. It's that part of us that we grew up and it defended us. And rather than being so frustrated with that person and just like, oh, I can't stand when I do that, or I can't stand when I respond like that, don't be cruel to the angry you. The angry you got you through a season. And rather than letting them drive you, anymore, you need to this may sound weird, but you may talk to that part of you and say, hey, you know what? You can't do that anymore. Thank you. You protected me for that season, but you don't have to do that anymore. I'm growing out of that. I'm growing out of that season in my life. And so to be authentic means that you understand, you uncover all these parts of yourself. Authenticity doesn't mean that you're showing up and just being like so blunt with everybody and I just say it like it is and I have no filter. That's not authenticity. Authenticity is to be true to yourself and to be very genuine with yourself, uncovering the parts of yourself with a lot of compassion and really recognizing that there are parts of you that maybe have covered up, right? Maybe you are a person that people pleases. And it's just a part of you that was a defense mechanism. Why? Because maybe you had no dad and maybe you had no mom or they really weren't there for you emotionally. And so now people pleasing feels like love. You love the attention that you get. Or maybe you're a person that in your personality, right, you just like to go and meet needs of people and you just want to help, 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 help. And I'm always there to help people. And you're always looking for people that need help, because that makes you feel needed. And so authenticity is uncovering all these aspects of yourself and being honest with yourself and asking the question, right? Well, let me say it like this. What if I were to come to you and you and I are having coffee, okay? We're sitting across the table and I said, "Well, why are you like that? Why are you like that? Why do you keep being like that?" You probably are going to get defensive and you're probably not going to answer that question. You're going to look at it in terms of like, "Well, why are you accusing me?" And you're not going to be honest about it versus me sitting across the table and asking you a question like this. Why do you think you're like that? Why do you think that you use that as a defense mechanism? Why do you think you respond that way when somebody tells you this? Why do you think this happens? This reaction happens in your life when this happens. Why? What do you think is behind that? Then it's gonna not come from an accusation. So do that to yourself. To show up authentically, to be authentic, is to ask yourself questions with compassion, without being so hard on yourself. Maybe that's something that you need to ask yourself. Why am I hard on myself? What's going on behind it? What is really going on? And get curious about it. Get curious. I I'm curious. Why do you suppose I do that? Why do you think I do something like that? And maybe kind of going, okay, I'm 30 years old. I'm not, but maybe you are. But ask yourself question, whatever age you are, right? But really go, okay, I'm this age. Why am I still doing that? Is there a version of me that is still trying to protect me? So maybe showing up authentically, that's what it looks like. It's to go, is there versions of me that are showing up in my 20-year-old self? That there's still versions of me that are trying to like step in, right? And it's like trying to protect you from something. And at the time, maybe you needed that protection. But it's authenticity is uncovering all of that. And that takes a lot of humility. You can't have pride in healing. It takes a lot of humility, right? And then you can start coming up with an answer, but getting really compassionate, right? Curious about yourself and not self accuse yourself and not be beating yourself up to the point where you're just so, why am I like this? Why can't I change? And I hate this part of my life. And that's not authenticity. That is actually a defense mechanism that you are still using, that you developed over a period of years for whatever reason. And you have to get curious. So, suppressing yourself is not going to lead you to authenticity, or being mean to yourself is not going to lead you to authenticity, or accusing yourself is not going to lead you to authenticity. Compassionate and curiosity, being compassionate is actually going to lead you there. Maybe you learned habits. There's certain habits that that's the way you trained your life. There are habits, right? And although you know that there are things in your life that you've got to change, right? You can acknowledge it, but in a place of a lot of compassion. So I want to talk about that with you for just a moment. Just picture this for the next minute or two in this podcast. You know, are you showing up with authenticity? And this authenticity, keep this in mind also. This comes to my mind. Somebody might say, or one of my viewers or one of my listeners might be saying, well, authenticity would be, me just telling it like it is, right? With no filter. I'm just going to be brutal with people and tell them like it is because I'm authentic. No, that's not authenticity. Maybe you're harsh, or maybe you're mean, and maybe that's stemming from something. And I used to, there was a part of me which was fear, And fear was one of the defense mechanisms in my life. And it was a deep embedded root that came in my childhood from certain things that I had to endure and go through. And the fearful me was my protection. So fear began to grip at a very young age. I was very traumatized by fear. And fear became that defense mechanism. And as I grew up, I noticed that that fearful me tends to want to come forth and drive the bus in my life, be the driving force. And I almost have to remember authenticity is really saying, this, where's this fear coming from? There's still something that I need to tend to. There's still a wound that's still festering. There's still something there that I need to take care of. And then I noticed that through that fear, right, a lot of times it leads us to other things. It can lead us to people pleasing. It can lead us to codependency. And it's important for us to ask the questions like, what if I were to uncover all these things, what's left? And it doesn't mean that you're going to go and disclose all this information to everybody, but it does mean that you are now at a place in your life that you can be very compassionate and very curious with yourself. That's authenticity. And it's beautiful and it's so freeing. So I just want to challenge all of you in these next few, days while we meet again in this podcast is kind of start thinking, are you authentic? Are you really genuine? Are you uncovering? Are you going on this compassionate curiosity journey where you start to go, I wonder why I do that. I wonder why that's there. I wonder what needs tending to. That's going to lead you to an authentic you. Now, remember, it's not something you're grasping for. It's already in you. You were fearfully and wonderfully made, and you were made in the image and in the likeness of God. So who you are is already in you. Now it's just really time to become authentic. And when you have authenticity, you start to develop authentic relationships. Your marriage will get better, your relationships start getting better, and you can even come to God from a very authentic place. It's healthy, it's freeing. You're not sitting there comparing yourself to others. You're not covering with pride or covering it up with fears, but rather you uncover it from a place of a lot of compassion. I hope this podcast helped you guys go on that journey and start asking yourself that question. Am I an authentic self? Am I becoming an authentic self? Or maybe I need to get on the journey of becoming an authentic self. We'll see you guys next time.